For this presentation, it seemed to make more sense if I first showed you what I do, then described why I do it. First, what I do. Like a number of writing teachers at UMUC, including the director of writing, Andy Cavanaugh, I no longer type comments on student papers. You heard that correctly. Neither the director of writing at UMUC nor other teachers of writing actually write comments on student papers. Instead, we use video feedback. There are numerous screen capture and editing programs out there that do this job. Camtasia, Screencast-O-Matic, Virtual Dub, which is free, Tiny Take, EasyVid Video Maker, also free, and ScreenPresso, just to name a few. I find Camtasia easiest and fastest to work with, so that's what you'll see today. Okay, it's Sunday night. Most students have already turned in the paper due at midnight. I want to get a jump start on grading this set. Here's what I do. First, I open the student's paper, keeping the magnification default at 100%. Then I launch Camtasia. Let's wait. This is happening in real time. Once it's up, I click Record. The record window appears over the student's paper, and I line the two up. The record window has the size of 1140 wide, 720 high. The extra space on the right is for insertion of help links if needed. I make sure my webcam is on. I make sure Camtasia will record my microphone audio.
Test, 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 test.
Then I click the big red record button. I get a 3, 2, 1 countdown and begin talking to the student, reading through the paper and making comments as I see necessary. This is an annotated bibliography. I might say something like, "Hi Lindsay, this is David. Today I'll be reading over your annotated bibliography. This is the first time I've read it, so you'll be hearing your writing and seeing someone react to it in real time, just like it happens in the real world." Okay, let's get started. Let's see, my overall first impression is that this looks very well organized. The sources are in alphabetical order. Each citation uses hanging indentation. You set off the annotation from the citation with an extra line space and indent it an extra ½ inch from the left. Excellent first impression. It definitely says you, the writer, were thinking about the reader. Thank you very much. Let's dig down a little. The word references is centered like it's supposed to be in APA. Excellent. One thing to point out, APA doesn't want the word references to be bold-faced, since they say it isn't a level 1 subheading. Looking at the citation format, nice. Author last name, comma initial, date in parentheses, period. Title of the source, punctuated like a sentence. You knew that it's a two-part title as indicated by the colon, so you cap the first word of that second title. Outstanding. My only comment, and this is probably a typo, since PowerPoint is a proper noun, it should be capitalized as such, as it would be in any sentence. Let's see, the journal title is capitalized appropriately and italicized, comma, volume and issue number in parentheses, inclusive page numbers, period, and the DOI, with no period at the end of the DOI. Now that, Lindsay, is a very good-looking citation. Then I would go ahead and read the annotation out loud. Hopefully, in hearing it, the student would hear how each sentence begins either with the author's name or with a pronoun referring to the author. It's a bit of an overkill, not necessary in an annotation. I might talk about the quote marks around intellectual reductionism and whether or not that's a quote within a quote. Explain the difference. Once finished reading through and talking about the student's paper, I click on Stop on the recording toolbar. Then this version of Camtasia gives me a preview so that I can ensure the audio and video were captured. Indeed, they were. So I click on Save and Edit.
I'll be prompted to save the capture in a pre-designated folder, which I have, Project 1 Captures. Type in the student's name, and as soon as I click on Save,
As you see, the clip automatically opens in Camtasia's editor window. All I do is click on my PIP, picture within a picture, move it up to the top, make it larger, and I'll be doing that for reasons that will be clear in just a moment. That done, I go to Produce and Share. As you see, Camtasia will auto-load the video to the host of my choice. Vimeo and YouTube are free. I select YouTube, it's fastest. I've created a YouTube channel just for the Writing 394 class I teach. At the end of this presentation, I'll show you how to create a YouTube channel if you want one. Now, this channel is set at unlisted. In other words, the only way someone can view a video on it is if they have the exact URL of the video. And since I give the URL only to the student, only he or she can view the video. You can do the same kind of privacy settings on Vimeo. As the video is uploading, I get started on the next paper. Here's a literature review. I brought this up because there are many variations on how to give this video feedback. That first paper, the annotated bibliography, was what I call a close reading because we were dealing with the accuracy of the citation. But another method, probably the one most often used, is first to read the paper off screen without making any marks on it. Then turn on Camtasia with the student's paper now visible and record just general comments based upon what I saw and thought during the read-through. This is the method most used for long papers. For example, on this project, I would first compliment the student on a strong introduction. It flows well, it introduces the topic, then it ended with a clear thesis statement. Then I would have a comment for the first body paragraph's organization. After that first sentence makes that claim, I would tell the student the evidence for the claim needs to come next, because that would be what the reader would expect, a claim to then be backed up. The idea is, after reading the paper through, you, the teacher, would have in mind 3-4 points you would like to make, as well as some summary comments. When the first video is finished rendering and uploading, a screen will pop up. At this point, I click on Share. I grab the URL, which will be pasted into the comments box in Leo, along with the grade. Now, this is what the student sees and hears when they click on the link. This is the video in regular mode. And I apologize, the PIP should be in the gray area of the paper. Since I was making a recording of a recording, I got confused. The student can also watch the video in theater mode, makes it a little bit bigger. And then there's also full screen mode, if they could stand looking at me in that large of a size. I try not to spend more than 30 minutes on a paper. That's about the same amount of time it takes to read and type comments, maybe a little more. There's definitely a learning curve, but eventually it settles into a nice flow. So, that is the what. Now for the why. After seeing the technique, some of the reasons are pretty obvious to you. Obviously, most everyone can talk 3 to 5 times faster than they can type, especially me. So the student gets 3 to 5 times more feedback in the same amount of time. Because I'm having a conversation with the student, I tend to come off as less harsh or critical than I might be in the cold medium of black squiggles on a white page where things are left open to interpretation. Being on camera definitely puts me on my toes more when it comes to being upbeat and personable. Also, because it's face-to-face, I'm far more apt to balance negative comments with positive ones, which is very important. Research has shown for a number of years that students learn as much or more from positive comments than negative ones, not to mention the effect on motivation. The student rightly feels that this video is just for me, making the feedback more personal and more individualized. Just think about the number of years and number of papers when the only interaction the student received on their work was written comments. I feel safe in saying that most students have had enough written feedback to last them a lifetime, and I really appreciate someone actually talking to them about their work. The final point, and one richly supported by the research, is the importance of the nonverbal aspect of language, of communication, which is provided in this technique by the video. As we know, tone plus body language, especially facial expressions, together constitute what is called nonverbal language or nonverbal communication. Also often called the second conversation. And you've probably heard the expression, gestures speak louder than words, both of which indicate the importance of nonverbal language. You've probably also heard of the 7% rule. Supposedly only 7% of what we communicate when we're face-to-face is delivered by words. 55% is delivered by body language, 38% by vocal signals. This formula comes from Albert Mehrabian and his colleagues at UCLA in the 1960s, and especially from Mehrabian's famous 1971 book, Silent Messages. Unfortunately, the results from the few experiments he did involving only a handful of people, 30 women, have been grossly misinterpreted and taken out of context. Mehrabian was testing single words and matching them with facial expressions and the pronunciation of that single word. He also tested the pitches of salesmen. The fact is, Mehrabian's research has little to nothing to do with the communication most people engage in daily. Even Mehrabian said, and I quote, "Unless a communicator is talking about their feelings or attitudes, my equations are not applicable." That said, Mehrabian and his work opened wide a window for the study of the importance of the nonverbal aspect of human language, a journey that continues even today. Today, most experts agree that the nonverbal component can be, depending upon the situation and the individual, as important or sometimes more important as the verbal, the actual words. What are the percentages when responding to student writing in a video? Well, no one has worked that formula out yet. Maybe we should do a Mehrabian-type study on this technique. But other research suggests that it's a lot, maybe 50%. Whatever the number, the takeaway for us teachers is this. Human communication is meant to have both a verbal and a nonverbal component. When we use only written comments to students, we lose that nonverbal portion of communication. And when we do, we lose something important, something that I would say is vital to their development as writers. My job as a writing teacher when reviewing a student's work is to effectively communicate my analysis and recommendations to the student. Writing cryptic notes in the margin, summarizing my opinion in a few sentences at the end, or marking check boxes on a rubric, simply do not allow me to communicate to the student as effectively as I can when augmenting my response with digital technology. In sum, it's my experience that video feedback puts teachers in more control of the message being delivered to students. Video feedback reduces the chance for miscommunication. It increases the amount of feedback we can give. It enhances the individualization of that feedback. And certainly it helps establish a stronger connection with the student. And it's that connection, I believe, that is the engine of their development as student writers.